But first, with the parliamentary year drawing to a close, even the most generous supporters will be forced to conclude that the Albanese government is in serious trouble. Now, it's not just those news poll numbers this week that for the first time had the government and the opposition neck and neck, but also the catastrophic fall in Labor's primary vote, the worst set of numbers in more than a decade. It's not just that foreign criminals legislation that was so urgent, we were told, Parliament had to pass it immediately at the beginning of the week, that hasn't even been introduced by week's end. Or that the government's own policies on energy and workplace relations are making the cost of living crisis worse. Or that the government's only real achievement, a budget surplus for the first time in 15 years, well, that's an accidental one that owes nothing to prudent decision-making or frugality and everything to the serendipity of continued sky-high commodity prices, the very coal and gas resources, of course, that the government wants us to keep in the ground and never use. It's more that this government has been exposed as a bunch of third-rate amateurs, with ministers out of their depth and a Prime Minister who's incapable of taking charge when his underlings stuff up. Now, as I said last night, a government's in trouble when it starts lying to protect itself. And it's in even bigger trouble when it starts lying about its opponents because the self-serving lies are no longer credible. But it's almost unprecedented when senior members start disassociating themselves from their own party's lies. In Parliament yesterday, the Prime Minister refused to apologise for the despicable lie peddled by his own ministers that the opposition leader was somehow a protector of pedophiles.
We saw the opposition, led by the Leader of the Opposition, come into the chamber and vote to protect pedophiles over children.
The Leader of the Opposition intervened as the then Minister for Immigration to allow the convicted pedophile at the centre of the High Court case, NZYQ, to apply for a new visa.
The Home Affairs Minister has accused Peter Dutton of being a protector of pedophiles. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Even though the Speaker of the Parliament, who is a Labor appointee and expected to protect the government, had ordered the main offender, the utterly underwhelming Home Affairs Minister Claire O'Neill, to withdraw the slur.
On Monday, Speaker, we saw the opposition, led by the Leader of the Opposition, come into the chamber and vote to protect pedophiles over children. That's what they did.
I request that you demand the Minister withdraw that disgusting slur that she's repeated on a number of occasions. It is below contempt.
I'm going to ask the Minister to make sure her language is tempered and to make sure that she is not reflecting upon members.
Earlier in the day, firebrand Liberal Michaelia Cash called on the Prime Minister to pull his ministers into line over the slur and been man enough, she said, to apologise to Dutton.
These comments have clearly been endorsed by the Prime Minister of Australia, Anthony Albanese. They are a reflection on Mr Albanese and the type of leader he is. They are despicable, they are disgraceful, they are beneath contempt.
But as we know, in the Parliament, he didn't. So it was left to retiring broadcaster Melbourne's Neil Mitchell on the last day in the job to call the PM out for the shameful protector of pedophiles lie and his failure as the leader to rein in his ministers. That is, of course, if they were defaming Dutton without the PM's say-so or that of his office.
Is there an apology there?
Well,
is there an apology for him?
Hang on. Ask me about things I've done, and I'd be happy to be accountable for them. Oh, Neil, he moved a motion yesterday in the Parliament saying essentially that we wanted a range of, I won't repeat on the program, a range of, including child sex offenders, rapists, everyone, that we wanted them out on the streets. He did that yesterday.
So in reply, you say he's protecting pedophiles. Terrific. Thank you for that. I mean, that's terrific standard of debate. You've really improved the quality of politics. That's outrageous. I mean, all right, he's insulted you. Take the high moral ground. Apologise.
Neil.
Yes,
I'm accountable for what I say.
They're your ministers. You're the boss.
Look, it was an extraordinary interview. It was a vintage Mitchell, in fact, and he didn't let up.
You apologise to him or not? Are you standing with your ministers?
Neil, I'm accountable for what I say.
Prime Minister, you're the boss. You're the boss.
It's about time that Peter Dutton took responsibility for what he said.
So I'll repeat the question. Do you stand by what your ministers said?
Neil, I stand by everything that I say, and I stand by the fact that my ministers have been doing everything they can to protect community safety, and Peter Dutton, from day one, has been focused on just politics.
You can solve it all here by just making that point and apologising.
I hate to tell you, Neil, but I can't solve it all here.
You know what they say, the fish rots from the head. Now, when asked about this on morning television, Peter Dutton had this to say.
So, I've got thick skin. I give as good as I can take, but I think the Labor Party, the Prime Minister, crossed the line this week. The fact is, it's a complete opposite of the truth, and you can say that's the rough and tumble of politics. But I really think the wheels are falling off this government. I think they're becoming more and more desperate, and they lash out like this. And the Prime Minister sent his ministers out. He didn't even have the guts to go out and make the comments himself.
Have you got an apology yet? Do you expect one?
I haven't got an apology yet. I would have thought, if he's man enough, he'll apologise, but I'm not expecting one, so that's up to him.
But as weak and gutless as the Prime Minister might be on this coordinated slur, there was a marked show of decency from the government's two most senior ministers from the right, former leader Bill Shorten and Deputy Prime Minister Richard Marles, because both Shorten and Marles pointedly distanced themselves from Labor's protector of pedophiles smear. Shorten said that Dutton should have supported Labor's legislation earlier in the week, but when asked about the pedophile claim, could hardly have made his disapproval more clear when he said, "They are not my words."
Do you endorse the accusation? Are you prepared to repeat the accusation that Peter Dutton protects pedophiles?
They're not my words.
Of course, nearly all governments suffer from midterm blues. In this case, though, Albanese's been totally shell-shocked since his voice was defeated. And it's clear he's taken refuge in overseas travel rather than taking charge of his government. Labor insiders and strategists are promising the party faithful they'll use the summer to reset. But the government's only idea for reviving its fortunes is more handouts, more vote buying, which will put its budget surplus at risk, make inflationary pressures worse, and if it succeeds in lifting Labor's spirits and the polls, will reflect more on the obviously ambitious Treasurer Jin Chalmers than the Prime Minister. Meanwhile, having well judged the public mood on The Voice, and with a promise to start releasing key policy positions in the new year, Peter Dutton is looking more and more credible. More and more credible as the alternative Prime Minister. And that's exactly why Labor has attacked him as hard and as personally as they have this week.